Hey everybody, hey, Lindsay Davis here with Spartan Invest, and I'm very excited to have Elliott Pike on our program interview. He is the president of the Greater Birmingham Association of Home Builders, and he's also with Elm Construction out of Vestavia here in Alabama. So I really want to talk to him about everything that COVID has affected from the renovation standpoint, new construction, where everything has been on a decline, especially given the increase with new construction, new home building prior to COVID-19. And then maybe even the future, what changes might be implemented, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much, Elliott. I appreciate you coming on.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Sorry, I just kind of introed you.
No worries. So I'm the president of Elm Construction. We do residential construction, so renovations, some custom homes, but primarily renovations in existing homes, kitchens, baths, additions, things like that. I'm also the president of the Greater Birmingham Association of Home Builders. I'll serve this term through 2020. It's been an interesting year to serve in that role, but hopefully we've been able to help our members, which is what our goal is ultimately, is to help our members. So we've been critical this year for sure. So
we'll start with the work with Elm. I mean, doing renovations, kitchens, bathrooms. How have you guys been affected? I mean, going into occupied properties, how is that y'all's day to day?
So there are a couple of different scenarios. One is occupied, one is unoccupied when it comes to renovation. So starting at the top from a business standpoint, this was the year started really well for us and for most remodelers in the construction industry in general. From a new construction standpoint, there's a shortage of housing, period. And the demand it's struggling to keep, the supply is struggling to keep up with demand. And then we had COVID-19 kind of come in and cause a bit of a hiccup. So for us and for many remodelers, the type of work that we do is relatively discretionary, right? So you're ready to renovate your kitchen. Something like this comes along and you're going to pump the brakes because you have no clue what this is going to entail as far as your personal situation. I mean, most of our clients are probably pretty safe in their jobs, but if the stock market takes a huge hit, people start to get anxious and nervous. And when you're reading the unemployment news where we've got 20 some odd million people unemployed, one of the highest unemployment rates in years, it starts to make people pause a little bit. So that's affected us. So the projects that we're working on going into this were projects that were designed and sold months ago. So they're already in that pipeline. The biggest concern that we have and other remodelers have is that blank space that was created in your pipeline, in your design process, starting probably the second week of March, we saw a significant drop off. We track all of our opportunities and there's about a 3-week period where it's just blank in that space. So that's what we're concerned about is not necessarily what we're working on now as much as what's going to happen in 2 or 3 months when we hit that dry spell, because there is a process. Remodeling and renovation takes a lot of planning to be done effectively and efficiently. So we're scrambling to try to fill that void. As far as our day-to-day operations on unoccupied structures, it makes it a lot easier because we focus on making sure that our teams are practicing safe practices relative to COVID-19, social distancing, cleaning their tools and equipment, wearing masks, gloves, all of those other things. And so it's a lot easier when we just have to focus on ourselves, but we still are working in some occupied structures. So, and let me tell you something, it's important to keep that work going because can you imagine, we've got a couple of kitchens now that are down to bare bones. They're on their way back, but if you had your kitchen gutted when all this hit, what a nightmare that'd be. So our employees have been really, really good about, working with the homeowners and implementing the safe practices. We've gotten a written program that we follow. We've provided all of our team members with, contactless thermostats. They check their temperature every morning. we've been able to round up gloves and masks and all these other things. And we try to educate the homeowners too about what we need for them to do, for them to remain safe and for our guys to remain safe. So it's been a process. It's slowed us down tremendously, but that's okay. It's all part of it. Stuff like this happens, and you just work through it. And the most important thing is just make sure everybody's safe, and the rest of it will take care of itself. So,
right. And talking about, discretionary renovations, and I'm curious to see how that continues. We see a lot of people talking about what kind of bounce back we're going to be able to see. And while I know the recession of 2008, completely different circumstances, but that recession really hit real estate. And so the downward turn of new construction and renovations, everything like that, will affect the overall state of real estate, moving forward. So I'm curious what you guys have seen on the new construction starting, because prior to COVID, it had been at all-time high because of inventory shortages, especially in Birmingham. So what your builders in Greater Birmingham, what are they experiencing? Are they still getting new orders?
So we saw a pretty big drop off in sales. Some builders, I can't speak for all, but what I'm hearing reporting back from some of our builders is a pretty good drop off. So there are a couple of large builders in town. One of them's reporting obviously a slowdown starting around that second week of March, but their projections include finishing the year at or above their numbers as predicted from the start. Others are not as optimistic, but they're still optimistic only because of the pent-up demand. It was there prior to this. It only got a little bit worse with this, and the assumption is that we'll start to speed back up and get some traction back in the new construction side of things. And but most of our companies are predicting still a pretty strong production year from construction and sales standpoint. So that's reassuring. It's just we have to get through these last few little hiccups, if you will, as we try to sort out moving forward how things are going to work. I mean, shutting down model homes is a big hit, because that gives the opportunity for the home buyer to touch and feel and see, which is still a huge part of buying a house. They want to see it and they want to know it and feel it. So they're implementing new strategies relative to how they'll allow that to move forward, whether it's appointment only, the wearing mask and shoe covers and gloves. It's a work in process as we try to get through that. Yeah, but the positive is there's definitely been a blip in sales and production, but because of the pent-up demand, we foresee that still turning out to be a pretty good year.
And what about once with those demand orders have kind of been filled, do you foresee a continuance in new construction? And then how has this affected permitting and inspections? I mean, I can speak for our renovations in that it's greatly affected. It stopped a lot of our projects because they've shut down city inspectors' offices and stuff like that. So what does that the future look like for that?
It's just slow. I mean, we've been really, really fortunate that the majority of our permitting and building offices have remained functional, but just significantly modified. So, for example, in Vestavia, we have to email everything in. They call us and tell us when it's ready to pick up. We have to take a check to them. There's a box. We have to put the check in a box. We have to grab our paperwork. There's no face-to-face contact. Inspections are still being provided. Obviously, social distancing practices, and in some cases, they've allowed us to document with photographs and things like that and send it in for things that are relatively obvious, if that makes sense. So if it's there are life safety issues, which is what the primary concern of most inspectors are. In those cases, it's a case-by-case basis, but in some cases, they'll let us submit a photograph of something along those lines, which is really helpful. It helps them, it helps us, helps the consumer most importantly.
Do you think
Yeah,
that'll carry on?
that's something we're working on. I think this has expedited a lot of different programs. So the county's working on an online permitting program prior to this, and I think this is going to speed that up. And just like we're hearing in the media about general things about people working from home, I think we're all discovering that, hey, maybe we can make this work. This isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be, so let's see what we can do.
I completely agree. That's been something that's kind of been revolutionary. Even at Spartan, we've been able to continue on and still work from home. I mean, we've been officially closed for going on 2 months now, and we've still hit all of our numbers and all of our key performance indicators. So what does that look like for offices, commercial real estate, and then how something like new construction has been able to streamline taking pictures to get the permits or get the inspections through. I'm curious how much that's going to carry over and just become normal practice.
Sure. And I will say, construction in general, I don't want to say it's a solitary practice, but it's a fairly socially distant practice as it is. So a lot of these crews are like families. I mean, they're working together from 6:30 till 5 or 5:30 at night on these job sites, whether it's a framing crew, masonries, and nothing has changed for them as far as other than implementing new socially distant practices on the job sites. But it's rare that you had a lot of commingling. So, for example, our foundation guys who are setting and pouring the foundations rarely have any exchanges with our masons. I mean, they finish on Thursday, the mason comes in on Friday. So there's hardly any overlap. When you get towards the end of a project and you're trying to get things wrapped up, sometimes the electrician may be there installing a light while the plumber is installing a sink faucet. But again, that's manageable. Unlike, some facilities where you're doing processing or manufacturing, that is what it is. You just, sometimes that can't be modified like we're already set up for this social distancing. So it plays well to what we're already doing. But we definitely have to be mindful of occupied structures and when you do have more than one trade on a job site. So
have you seen, I read an article earlier about the custom home, and there has been an influx of new builders to new construction, obviously as 2008 has kind of weaned down in the last 5 years. Have you seen that increase? And then also with those custom home builders and then coupled with the unemployment, do you foresee that kind of hurting as well?
Well,
that was all over the place. That was like two questions. Like combining them.
Well, when the economy is doing really, really well, and when there's such a demand, obviously you get people that want to get into this industry. If that's the kind of question, I mean, everybody thinks that they're a home flipper. They feel like they can go out and
tons of that.
Yeah. And so in reality, all that does is hurt our industry. I've heard horror story after horror story of we bought this house and we go in and, not only was there not a permit pull, but the work is just questionable at best because there's such a focus on profit, and it's not going to be it's not their day to day. Their day job is maybe they're working at a bank or something, and this is just an investment they do on the side. So there's always going to be that angle, and there are always going to be people trying to get in. Our licensure department is doing a much better job of trying to monitor this and trying to protect the public from those types of people. I know that they have lowered some of the thresholds relative to what it takes in order to be licensed, which can be helpful as far as preventing some fly-by-night people. But yeah, we're seeing, you're always going to have that when the economy is doing well. 2008 cut our ranks in half virtually from a home builder standpoint. And I don't know that we'll see numbers like that again in my lifetime as far as membership and production. But what you have now are a lot of the survivors that made it through that are very resilient. They've learned, and after seeing the big crash, you have people that might be a little more hesitant. So that has slowed down some of the influx of people trying to capitalize on the demand.
Right. And I agree that kind of when the economy's good, a lot of people might dive in and try in real estate and in construction. We see that a ton. And so we're obviously trying to be very diligent, pulling permits, making sure that all of our stuff, meets code, gets inspected, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. And when you do it every day, it's your reputation. You don't have a choice. I mean, most reputable builders choose to do those things. It's just not worth the risk. It's not worth, it's not worth the risk of something going awry and not having protection for your homeowner or for yourself. So yeah, definitely.
So the association for Birmingham, what information have you guys been putting out to builders that may have seen a drop in all of their new orders coming in for new builds, or maybe are kind of stuck with some new construction that's not selling right now? What communication are you guys sending them?
Well, generally our focus has been on how to work during this time period safely. That's really one of our biggest focuses. Because we have been deemed essential, most of our businesses are trying to continue to work. And one of the things we're battling is educating all of our members to make sure that they're doing things the right way. Because there's nothing that can hurt an industry, more than a few bad apples. So if you see some people not following, safe practices on a job site, we don't want that to be assumed that's the way everybody's doing it. So we're really trying to do a good job of educating our members and the public. So we've produced job site signs we give to our members to post. It walks them through the different steps they can take to protect themselves and the public around them. We encourage them not to come in if they're sick. We're trying to, this is going to be when you're looking at a per unit based pay, what I mean is, subcontractors are employees that are paid hourly or paid by production. And if they don't get a paycheck, if they don't work, they don't get paid. That's something we have to really look hard at in the future to help prevent, because the last thing we want is somebody to feel like they have to come into work regardless of symptoms that they may be displaying, they're trying to hide because they feel like they have to work to make a living. So that's something we're trying to figure out how to address better, how to encourage people to accommodate. And that's a tough one. Definitely something we're trying to help with. But the main thing, our main focus right now is trying to educate and just make sure that we're providing the information that our members can use to be safe. That's our primary goal right now.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's the supply. The demand side is taking care of itself for the most part on new construction. And with renovations, everything we're seeing is once people start to get some confidence back that this is hopefully behind us, that discretionary spending potentially will start to come back. So,
and we hope it comes back with, the same oomph that it left
absolutely.
With. But that brings up just such an excellent point in 1099 contractors. The framers, painters, all of those individuals that are crucial in all things renovation, new construction, mandatory repairs. We see it in our property management company. We have full-time maintenance crews, and they are paid hourly, and it's kind of paid when the job's done. It's that, or paid by job, I'm sorry. And if they're not able to work, if they become sick and can't work, the quarantine time frame is so large that it could be really, really detrimental to them and to their family. So it's an excellent point. It's great that you guys are sending out as much communication as possible to allow them to keep working, but safely during this time, but so they're not suffering and still getting paid.
Yeah, and it's just something we got to look at long term as well. It's a very challenging thing to do from a financial standpoint, but it's definitely something we need to try to figure out how we can work with it. So I think it's going to help us all in the long run.
Yeah, and I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that they continue to allow the photos for inspections, because that would make our guys' lives a lot easier instead of having to go out there and continue to get the same thing inspected or rechecked and checked and checked. That might streamline a lot of processes.
And most of these building departments are stretched so thin already. And so maybe this shows them, hey, this is a viable solution. And as long as it's not a liability for them, then it may be an issue that we can continue to work with them to help streamline the whole process. I mean, regulations and I don't know if you've ever heard this, but in the new construction world, regulations and trying to follow protocols and permitting and taxes typically equate to about 25% of the cost of a new home. So you can do the math. If it's a $200,000 house, 50,000 of it's just so that we can comply with all the regulations and permitting and inspections and things like that. So anything we can do to help keep those costs in check, to help keep houses affordable is a good thing. So maybe this stuff will carry over. I'm with you on that. So
yeah, that's a crazy percentage to go towards just compliance.
That's exactly right.
It's necessary because you don't want to get in a situation to where you have contractors that are taking advantage, but still, man, that's a lot. So yeah,
well, I mean, it's across the gamut though. It includes taxes, it includes things like energy efficiency upgrades that are required now, that the payback might be 40 years, but it's required now. So those are the types of things we're trying to work through. But yeah, so if an inspection department has to have 5 people on staff so they can handle the workloads under current conditions, as they grow, as their demand grows for inspections, maybe if they're working more efficiently with some of these models we've been working through during COVID-19, maybe that can help them avoid having to incur the cost of hiring a new person. Maybe they can pick up an additional 10% or something. So those are all things we'd love to see.
So for the individuals out there who are trying to figure out whether now is the time to focus on a renovation or an at-home repair, I agree. Probably not good to start a kitchen demolition or demolish, whatever that word is, right now. But what the person looking to build a new home, do an extensive renovation, but might be hesitant just because of the uncertainty, any advice you would you give that particular individual?
Yeah, I think that the timing actually may work out pretty well because you've got, in most processes, you've got a pre-construction and design phase that is separate from the actual construction. So in our system, that can take 2 to 3 months minimum. So if we can go ahead and get started on that, by the time we get to the point where we're sitting down with you and we've got a developed set of plans, we've got a detailed scope of work, and we've got all of the budgeting figured out to the penny. At that point, it's just now pull the trigger. The construction's the easy part, in my opinion, once you get past all that. So there's nothing that says you can't get through this phase. And then if you're still not ready to pull the trigger on it, maybe you wait until you're a little more comfortable. And there may be some escalation clauses that are part of your proposal or contract, because over time, prices do tend to change. Other than that, there's not a huge amount of risk if you wanted to move forward and start that planning process. That's what I would encourage you to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you can go ahead and have everything ready, and then when you're ready to pull the trigger, that's when you jump in.
Yep, that's absolutely right.
Thank you so much for jumping on here and just kind of talking about what new construction, renovations, that world is seeing right now, because obviously it's affected industries across the board. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me about that.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Enjoyed the time.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one. I'll see you later.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye.